Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 382 of the All Dolphins podcast for this Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. Lots of big news around the NFL on this Tuesday. If you're a real NFL team, you required a wide receiver, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Miami Dolphins against Indianapolis Colts at Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday. Yes, this is the latest edition of Behind Enemy Lines, and pleased for this episode to be joined by ESPN reporter Stephen Holder, formerly of Miami, formerly of the Miami Herald. Stephen, how are you?
I'm doing great, doing great. I always love talking to a Miami audience, and I don't get to do it enough, but happy to do it here.
Been a long time since you've been in Indy right now. I'm talking, what, 20 years, 20-some years?
Well, I've been here for 11 years, but away from Miami since 2005. So it's been almost 20 years. Yeah. It's crazy. But my parents are still in Miramar, so I'm very connected to the area. I'm going to the Canes game this weekend in Louisville.
Nice.
So, hey, man, I still get my fill,
So you're all about the U?
All about it. All about it.
Very nice. It's also nice that they have a quarterback this year.
Very nice. Love it.
It's a nice change. The Colts also have a very, very interesting quarterback. How do you like that for a segue? They have a very exciting quarterback in Anthony Richardson, who I guess from Shane Steichen's comments Monday should be back in the lineup against the Dolphins on Sunday.
Yeah, that's the expectation. I mean, I think he, for all intents and purposes, could have played in Week 6 against the Titans. He wasn't fully healed from that oblique injury. The best that I can tell is that it's a painful injury. It's not something he could have made worse, perhaps, but something where I think the pain might have impacted his throwing motion and things like that. So with certainly having Joe Flacco on board, there's really no need to put him out there in harm's way when he doesn't have to be. So the decision was made, and all parties kind of signed off that, including Anthony, that let's go that way. But yes, he is expected to play on Sunday, and I'm just as interested to see him as you are. We haven't seen enough of him. He's been in and out of the lineup for 2 years now, a year and a half. And so this is a critical time for him. But we have seen enough to see the shades of what he can be. The question is, can he do it consistently, and can he stay healthy?
Yeah, and speaking of Flacco, I can think of another team in the NFL that maybe could have used him the past 3 weeks. I don't know, rhymes with Miami Dolphins. But no, they decided that Skylar Thompson was going to be the answer, a backup quarterback.
Listen, I will say this. We know about backup quarterbacks up here, okay? We know all about that. So lesson learned.
Yeah. I'm sure you're shocked by the struggles of Gardner Minshew in Las Vegas this year. I don't want to take shots at Gardner Minshew. I got to stop taking shots at players. That's not very nice on my part. Would it be weird to suggest obviously the Colts have to play Anthony Richardson, 4th overall pick last year. He's their guy of the future. But is it so out of left field to suggest right now they would be a better team with Joe Flacco at quarterback?
So it's a question a lot of people are asking, including some Colts fans. So it's not a preposterous question. The answer for me, I can only speak for me, is I think you go with Anthony Richardson, even taking the future out of it. And here's why. Because certainly part of this is, yes, he has to develop for the future and they have to find out what they have. That is true. Even in taking that out of the equation, I believe the offense has a higher ceiling when he is on the field. That does not mean that from play to play to play that it's all going to be pretty and roses and tulips. Okay, sometimes it gets ugly and he isn't consistent. However, the one thing that he does consistently, and this is something that their coach Shane Steichen is a huge believer in. The one thing he does is he makes the big play. And, I don't want to get too far into the analogies and all that, but one of the things that I always go to basketball analogies, right? And it's like, when you have a guy who, is a volume shooter, he might only shoot 35, 38%, but he's going to get you 35. And if the other team doesn't have that guy, you have a good chance of winning. So, maybe not the perfect analogy, but look, where he lacks in certainly completion percentage, where he lacks in maybe just the always making the perfect read. He makes up for it in having at one point, the highest air yards mark in the entire NFL, and the top 3 in yards per attempt, and things that really matter. The teams that win in this league are the teams that make those big plays, and you can take even the Chiefs as an example. They're not making those big plays anymore because their offense has changed, their personnel has changed, and it's become a lot harder for them to win. Right? They're 6-0.
They always win.
They always win, but their defense is amazing, first of all, and Mahomes just transcends all of that. But it gets a lot harder, right? So even for them, they miss it when they don't have the big play. So that's just my perception. And I would say, lastly, this very long answer, I would say that Flacco did do a great job. There's no question about it. But I thought the difference between him playing Jacksonville in the previous week and then his second start this past Sunday against Tennessee was very different. Tennessee defense that right is very good, and has good personnel. He struggled. Okay, he was under 6 yards per attempt. Did not have the big plays. I think 189 yards passing. It was very much like a Flacco, a 39-year-old, 40-year-old Flacco type of game. So you can get more upside with your offense with Anthony Richardson than that.
I agree. And speaking purely from a football fan perspective, Anthony Richardson's a hell of a lot more fun to watch. I mean, the microcosm of what you have with him, I think it may have been in the same game. He had like that stupid, ridiculous pass, I think in the opener, where I got 2 guys around him and he throws a dart from 50 yards out. And then he throws a pick where it's like, where are you throwing, dude?
Yeah, it's a roller coaster, right? It is. And young quarterbacks can be that way. It's an interesting experience for Colts fans because, for the last 25 years, just about, they've had, for the most part, Peyton Manning and going right into Andrew Luck up until 2019 or 2018 season. And so the time since then has been really an adjustment, for Indianapolis fans, because this is new. I mean, they have conveniently forgot about Peyton Manning's rookie struggles and the fact that he didn't win a playoff game for like 5 years, but people have conveniently forgot those things. But be that as it may, the continuity and just the ability to show up on Sunday and know your quarterback is going to be not a problem for you. The quarterback will not be the problem. It's such a luxury that now, this up and down nature that you get with young quarterbacks. I mean, there's only one Jaden Daniels and one CJ Stroud. They're the antithesis of reality. And so this is reality with young quarterbacks. They're up, they're down, but as long as the highs are higher than the lows, or they're more highs than lows, then you can live with it. So we'll see. Yeah.
No, it's a very good point. And I do remember actually Peyton Manning's very first NFL game was against the Dolphins, and he got picked off 3 times. So Jonathan Taylor is dealing with a high ankle sprain, didn't play against Tennessee on Sunday. What's your take on how likely he is to play, and how different is that offense without him?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. It's a totally different offense. And I think opponents know that, and they play differently against them. So they really need him back. As to the first question, I have struggled to really kind of predict what's going to happen with him, and I've been wrong a lot, so I stopped doing it. But I would say, look, I think a couple things about Jonathan Taylor. Number one, he is personally, this is not about the team. Some of this is about him. I think he is taking a very cautious approach with this ankle because he has past history dealing with this ankle. Yeah. And so that's part of it. I do think that, I don't want to say he's sort of, afraid to maybe do more damage, or maybe scarred by some of what's happened in the past. But I can't imagine that it's not at least some factor in his thinking here. So he has expressed a lot of optimism about how he feels, and that the fact that he feels better, but yet we haven't seen him practice. So this is a big week. I got to think that as they start now to get some guys back in the lineup, Richardson coming back, DeForest Buckner is close. Probably won't see him this week, I don't believe, but he is close. So, as these other guys start to return, and Michael Pittman Jr., for example, playing through an injury we thought was going to put him on IR, I wonder if there's going to be a little more pressure on Jonathan Taylor to say, all right, let's give it a go and let's see where we are. So they're hoping this is the week.
A little peer pressure, like, dude, we're playing hurt, suck it up,
That's right.
And Michael Pittman, who, as you mentioned, all the reports where he's going to go on IR, and I'm watching NFL Red Zone, and not only is he playing, he's making the game-winning touchdown catch in traffic in the end zone. That was pretty good. What the hell's going on with the run defense over there? 31st in the NFL. And they got Raekwon Davis from the Dolphins, you would think would solve all those. Sorry.
Funny how that didn't happen, huh?
Wow.
Listen, first of all, I agree with you. I think it is the most underwhelming part of this team this year. Not necessarily just because it's bad, but also because it was supposed to be good. So the injuries are a factor. Okay, that's fair. But even before the injuries started to mount, they started the season this way. They had Joe Mixon run all over them in week 1 when they had a full complement of players. It happened again to a degree in week 2. It definitely happened. In fact, in week 2, Josh Jacobs up in Green Bay, well over 100 yards against them. So they saw this for multiple weeks, even before the injuries really started to mount. I do think they settled in a little bit after those first couple of weeks, but then the injuries eroded the personnel, so you almost can't tell the difference, right? But I did see a little bit better performance in the second half against Tennessee. Their running backs, their 2 running backs combined were about 5.5 yards per carry in the first half against Tennessee. The Colts did shut that down in the second half, to their credit, and made them really, kind of one-dimensional to a degree, which, puts the ball in Will Levis's hands, which can be problematic. So,
speaking of
it
erratic,
was exactly. So that was a good showing. Whether they can do it for 4 quarters and really step up, it remains to be seen. The tackling has been disappointing, and I thought that was something that I didn't anticipate being a problem. Their linebackers really have to step up there. Zaire Franklin, big physical guy, you got to play like it. EJ Speed, a very rangy, athletic linebacker, he's got to go make some plays in space. So these guys have, I think, fallen short in that area, and that has, I think, combined with what the front 4 hasn't done. When you put that together, that's been problematic for them for sure against the run.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was last week or the week before, they were missing 3 of their projected 4 starting defensive linemen.
Yeah. I mean, basically, they're 3 of their, I'd say, top 4 defensive linemen. So, early in the offseason, early in training camp, they lost Samson Ebukam, who was a 10-sack guy for them last year, sack leader. He hasn't played a down all year. DeForest Buckner, former All-Pro defensive tackle. I mean, just an SOB to block. Okay, this guy is just a game wrecker. He's missed the past 4 games. And so Tyquan Lewis is another one who, not a heralded player, but a guy who, when he's not out there, you realize what you miss. So, and Kwity Paye as well, who is now back in the lineup.
Okay. So. I mentioned Raekwon Davis, and it's not why I was being a smart ass, because sometimes I can't help myself. I mean, he was a serviceable backup for the Dolphins, just not a difference maker. Correct me if I'm wrong, whether you get 2 years, $14 million from the Colts.
Yeah. Part of the reason it's interesting. Timing is everything in life. And the Colts are a team that last year really suffered when they had interior defensive line injuries. Or actually, there was a suspension to Grover Stewart for 6 games. DeForest Buckner was playing but hurt, and that really impacted their run defense and also certainly the pass rush, the interior pass rush. So the thought was, okay, let's actually go out and spend some money to provide some depth at that position. The problem has come in where with Buckner being out of the lineup, they've had to play Raekwon far more than they intended. So now he's playing snaps that they did not set out for him to play. He was really supposed to be depth, and he became, for all intents and purposes, to a degree, a little bit of a starter, or at least a very big part of the rotation. So that's a different responsibility, and that can certainly put a player in a position where he has to produce more, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
And I'm gonna take from the tone of your voice right there that Raekwon hasn't.
I would say he's gotten better in the last couple of weeks. I thought initially he was, I thought, pretty invisible. Now, in his defense, he had a really strange physical issue in training camp. Really missed all of training camp. He had an elevated blood pressure issue, and this, we never really got a lot of details about it. But he did not practice, I think, until the final practice of training camp. They had a joint workout in Cincinnati before their last preseason game. That was his first practice of the preseason. So he was very much out of shape, which is natural. They had to kind of keep his physical activity in check. And so he really was starting from zero after working all off season to get in shape, came into camp, and they caught this issue. So I think he started behind the 8 ball, and we'll see how far he can take this and continue, hopefully elevating. But certainly he was not an impact player initially. More impact lately, but he still got a little ways to go.
Gotcha. So I look at the Colts, and it's like, and I don't mean to insult the team you cover, but it's a very, very nondescript team. And it's like there are 16 teams in the AFC, and you got some that are interesting because they're really, really bad, some that are because they're really good, and then you got the Colts. What do we make of them? Are they legit playoff contenders? Are they bound to be 9-8 or 8-9 and out of the playoffs again?
They are right where I think they belong, which is right in the middle. Not good, not bad. They're 3-3. Even their record is ordinary, right? So everything about them says not a great team, not a bad team, but also, for right now at least, not a team that is a playoff contender. I mean, I think they could be in the race. Really, the next month, a month to 6 weeks, I think will determine what this team is. And we'll know more, too. I think we'll get a better read because they'll get some guys back from injury. They feel good about that. So that helps. Hopefully, Richardson can get some continuity. I mean, the game in which he was injured was, I thought, his best performance of the season. He only played a quarter, but he went right down the field in the first 2 drives against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which most teams aren't able to do. So that was the first opening drive touchdown they'd allowed since December. So pretty impressive. But again, we talked about consistency and continuity and all those things. That has been a problem. So we'll see. I think your description is pretty accurate. I mean, you got to prove it, and right now they are a team that in many measures, their defense has been underwhelming. Their offense is fine, but, not elite. They're just kind of a middling team until they're different, until they prove differently. But they get Miami this week. After Miami, it gets really tough. You're talking about the Texans, the Lions, they go to the Jets. I mean, it's going to get tough. So they've got a tough road ahead. And I think if they come out of that in one piece, their last 5 or 6 games are very, very manageable.
Couldn't help but notice that you said after the Dolphins, it gets tough. So you're kind of suggesting Miami native here who used to work for the Miami Herald, whose parents live in Miramar, is saying the Dolphins are not tough.
Well, look, I've seen the Dolphins a couple times this year, and I was mortified. It's what I would say. I don't quite understand why it's so bad. I struggle to explain it or understand it, even though I watched it myself. All I know is the results are the results. I saw that Tennessee team on Sunday, and I just kept thinking to myself, how did that happen? How did they go to Miami and do what they did? And so, even though, again, I watched it, but it's just so hard to believe. But look, I think the Colts are fully capable of losing this game. Don't get me wrong, because they are a team. It can go either way with them. But I just mean in terms of finding their identity and them either proving they are or are not a team to contend with, that really will be, I think, determined by that tough 5-game slate they have coming up after Miami. But to be completely honest, if they lose to Miami, that says something about them too.
Yeah, and I think like the most optimistic of Dolphin fans would look at this matchup and go, well, the Dolphins rushed for 193 yards against New England. They rediscovered the running game, and they're going to keep doing it against a Colts team that ranks 31st in the NFL in run defense. Therefore, voila, easy win. Dolphins are back on track.
Right.
Do you have any sort of feel for how this game goes?
Look, I mean, that's like a plausible scenario. I mean, that's been a blueprint for teams that have beaten the Colts. Okay, that's true. Like I said, they've gotten better at it. They have somewhat. I don't think they've rectified it, but they have shown some pushback against the run, I guess. I don't think they're good against the run, but I think they're not as bad. Let's put it that way. In like the last week and a half or so. So we'll see. That's the first thing I'd say. The other thing I would say is that they will stress you, theoretically, stress you with the big plays on offense. You know, you have Alec Pierce at wide receiver, who's leading the NFL in yards per catch. He had 0 catches on Sunday. I imagine he's very much looking forward to Anthony Richardson coming back because, for better or worse, he will put the ball in play down the field and give him a chance at those 50-50 balls, which I think he is tremendous at. So you're seeing Josh Downs, I think, now as a number 2 receiver, really starting to get more after the catch and really stressing defenses to bring him down the open field. So they're finding their playmakers and they're really getting more out of them. I think Jonathan Taylor coming back would certainly be the cherry on top. It just depends on whether the Colts can tap into that and maybe make the running game a little less potent for Miami because maybe they make it a higher scoring affair. So we'll see. That's the question. What kind of offensive production do you get from the Colts, and what does that mean for how the Dolphins have to play offense?
Yeah, it may also come down to who can get the early lead. Because if the Dolphins fall behind, maybe they won't want to stick with the running game as much, and then they abandon the idea of running 40 times, which is what led them against the Patriots. So we shall see. I'm like with you. I'm like almost to give me a coin, I'll go like this, and that'll be my pick. Top one.
Well, you can't trust either one of these teams. Is the problem, And so when you try to predict what they're going to do, that's where you get in trouble. But that's our job, right? So lucky us.
Pretty much, yeah. No, and then the past couple of years, it was easy to predict the Dolphins. They were going to be great until early to mid-December, and then there's going to be trouble. This year, everything's completely wacky the other way. And who knows? Maybe they start off sluggish and they finish strong in a reversal.
Yeah,
we shall see what happens on Sunday. So that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Behind Enemy Lines. I want to thank again my guest, Stephen Holder from ESPN. Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated. Kind folks, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And we will be back tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.